Rocking the Homestead Grays jersey.
Absolutely. MLB The Show 24 comes out in about an hour, and Josh Gibson, my favorite Negro League player, will be released, and I will be getting him immediately. So I am celebrating him by wearing his jersey tonight.
That is fantastic. Josh Gibson was amazing. My favorite Negro Leagues player was Satchel Paige.
He was in the game last year, and he was amazing, and I love him.
Yes. What am I doing? What? Hey, Raider Nation, what is up? Biggs here with my co-host Raider Damas and my co-host Dynasty Joe FF. We're here to talk free agent stuff. Let's get the chat fired up. Hopefully we get some of the guys that have been hanging out the last couple shows. Get your comments going and give us some more to talk about. Tyler and I had a really good show the other night, just completely reeling from all of the free agent news that was happening, and it keeps going. We have even more stuff to talk about. So we'll go over some of the original stuff real quick, and then and we'll just add and supplement as we go along. And let me get the show started. And hey, producer. That Jeff Hostetler clip gets me fired up. All right.
Dude, I'm pumped up.
The other one's pretty good too. It's a little story that was put together to tell about the Raiders. Dynasty Joe FF, tell us where we can find all of your content.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Tyler, Brennan, I'm really excited to be here. For the last 2 months, I've been doing nothing but rookie work and doing a deep dive into this class, particularly for Dynasty, as you can tell by my handle, over at the Undroppables. So you can find me at Dynasty_Joe FF on the Twitter, and all my work at the Undroppables.
Sweet. Undroppables is a good place to be. And so is the Raider Ramble, where you can find Raider Damas' stuff. What do you writing your first Raider Damas post yet? You getting ideas?
I am always getting ideas. Comedy sort of, trickles throughout the ether all year long. A lot of things that happen, as long as they're unfortunate, can be turned into jokes. So I am always looking for bad things that happen to other people, because that's always what's funny.
And that, yeah, and funny drives content. All right. We had a huge show the other night. We talked about Josh going to Green Bay, and we talked about Christian Wilkins coming to Las Vegas. He actually signed today, was wearing a fantastic jacket that was filled with playing cards in the lining. It was very good. And he and Gardner seemed to fit in right away. And that is derivative of the relationship that Antonio Pierce has with players and what this organization is set to just completely become, is this galvanized group of people working towards the same thing. It was good to see Gardner and Max Crosby hug it out. And Christian Wilkins is going to be an absolute dog. So real quick, Dynasty Joe, what are your thoughts on A, losing Josh, B, Christian Wilkins coming in? Where are we at?
Well, first of all, I don't know if you caught any of the clips, first thing he did in his interview before before he answered any questions, he just screamed "Raiders" into the mic. He did the same thing when they were having him sign. So right away, I knew this guy's a real one, meant to be in the silver and black. Minshew, God, I mean, have you guys seen that meme of like the Raiders emblem just with like the Minshew overlay with the mustache and the glasses? Like, I love it. You know, I don't know how many games he's going to start for us. I don't know how many games he's going to win for us, but boy, he feels like a Raider. So from that standpoint, I'm stoked. Obviously, Wilkins, the more impactful signing, that got me juiced about the direction of this team, and it actually gave us some insight into what the Raiders are thinking. I've had half a mind, or I don't know, 1 foot into rebuilding, right? But it's clear from that signing that that is not what they're doing. It's clear from the Minshew signing that that is not what they're doing. That's a cover your butt play at quarterback. That's a push O'Connell play, and that's also we might draft a quarterback and roll Minshew out there for 5, 6, 8 weeks until he's ready type of play. So
Right.
we're competing, and I'm pumped.
Yes, sir. Any new thoughts, Tyler? You got a
Well, just like on Monday, we were reeling from all of the activity that the Raiders had been putting out there. Today, I'm reeling from all the nothing that they've been doing. They've done absolutely nothing whatsoever in the last couple of days, except for signing backup tight end Harrison Bryant. Now, that's a good thing because behind Michael Mayer, we had absolutely nothing whatsoever. And Austin Hooper signed with the Patriots.
Austin Hooper slander?
I'm suggesting we don't have him anymore, so we had to sign somebody else. He was a fantastic depth, but he's not a Raider anymore, so we can't count him. I did see a lot of the other things that went down in the league. A lot of them were very, very interesting, which I'm sure we'll get into. The Raiders also decided to not cut Jimmy Garoppolo immediately until use him as a June 1st designated cut. Which will give them a little bit more salary cap flexibility after that date, and to use after the draft class comes in. I'm sure they have something brewing for that. I'm sure they have something in mind, and maybe perhaps they decide they don't need the money right now. Their team needs. They don't have a ton except for the right side of the offensive line at the moment. If they had to go out and play a game today, they probably could scrape together enough starters to do so. So right now, I think we're just sort of looking at depth and to bolster maybe a position like corner or, as I said, the right side of the line. I don't think the Raiders need to make any big impactful splash moves any longer.
Well, Jimmy G was released today. We're not waiting. He got one.
Is he not a June 1st? I already was going to be a June 1st cut, though.
No, he's gone already. My favorite thing today was seeing the conspiracy theories that are out there that we purposely, as an organization, spiked Jimmy Garoppolo's drug test results so that we could cut him.
Well, a wise man once said, "If you're not cheating, you're not trying." So I would not put it past anybody in this organization or any other organization to do something like that.
If they did, it was the smartest thing the Raiders have done in years.
And the funniest.
Absolutely. And I mentioned that and got some pushback from somebody. And he said, well, we did it to Chandler Jones too. And I was like, what is happening? What is this? Alex Jones a Raider? Like, what are we doing?
Man. I have the documents.
Right. It's all part of the global elites. All right. So the other unfortunate news today, Hunter Renfrow is no longer with the organization. And in 2021, he was a fantasy wide receiver 11. He had over 100 catches, which hasn't really happened for a lot of Raiders for a while. We have one here, one there kind of thing. But Renfrow did it. And he had over 1,000 yards that season. And he and Derek Carr had a really, really good relationship. He's an absolute route killer. And Third and Renfrow. I mean, you don't get a nickname like Third and Renfrow if A, you're not loved by everybody, and B, you don't produce. So it was the writing had been on the wall for a long time, but it was really sad. And so I wanted to take this time to make an elegy for Hunter Renfrow because I had nothing but high hopes for him. 2022, he was injured and McDaniels was here, and I don't know if he screwed McDaniels' wife. I don't know what happened to put Hunter Renfrow, like one of the hardest working, nicest guys, was on the outs with McDaniels. How does that even work? And then last season, he and McDaniels just never were sympathetic or anything. So he's moving on to other things. Joe and I talked about it a little bit before we started tonight. I made a video for Player Profiler yesterday and wrote a little news blurb about the release. And I said that my two primary landing spots that I hope for Hunter Renfrow are New Orleans and Kansas City. I think New Orleans, he would be good to be reunited with Derek Carr. And I think him in that Kansas City offense would make them absolutely not unstoppable, because we're still going to stop them, but they'd tear the rest of the league up. I just think he would be perfect with Mahomes if they could develop the rapport, because that's the way that Mahomes plays. It's Kelsey plays a similar style to Renfrow. Tyreek Hill played a similar style to Renfrow, only way faster and with much deeper targets. But I think that him working in out of the slot and just getting open the way that he can, I think that would be an incredible weapon for Kansas City, who just signed Hollywood Brown not an hour ago. Thoughts on Renfrow?
I'm gonna miss him. Loved him. I think that the writing was on the wall when we signed Jacoby Myers. They ran a lot of the same routes, and Renfro more of a slot guy, whereas Myers a little bit more inside and outside. But we knew that when we signed Myers, that was gonna eat into Renfro, and I've got no qualms with Myers. He's been great as a Raider. But yeah, I share your sentiment. I'm gonna miss him. I don't hope he goes to the Chiefs. Being reunited with Carr
For
is
his sake.
is a nice story. I think he'll succeed wherever he goes, and hopefully he goes somewhere he's wanted and he's going to be used correctly.
Well, I like Hunter Renfrow, and I too hope he does not go to the Chiefs, because I wouldn't wish living in Kansas City upon my worst enemy. There was a game a couple of years ago, one of the first games Josh McDaniels coached as a Raider, wherein against the Cardinals, and the Raiders were up really big, and they lost in the end. Not a little bit, because Hunter Renfrow was hit so hard he was concussed and committed a turnover, and the Cardinals returned the fumble for, if I want to say, the game-winning touchdown, but I could be wrong about that. Ever since then, it seemed like Hunter Renfrow was on the outs with Josh McDaniels. I suspect McDaniels also took his tax returns to Renfrow and didn't get as big a return from the government as he would have liked. So I think his usefulness was limited to McDaniels. I think he'll find much more usefulness in another regime going forward. So I think he can be a big weapon. But I think when your coach sees you get knocked out, drop the ball, and it get returned for a touchdown, he tends to lose faith in you. So I don't necessarily blame McDaniels for that. Renfrow, when he was the only healthy, viable receiver on the Raiders roster, did get 100 catches in a year. So he shows that he can do it as long as nobody else is available. And so I think he can be a weapon no matter where he goes.
Travis checking in from the wilds of Canada. Look at these studs. Absolutely.
What's up, Trav?
Trav, if you want to hop on the show, just jump in the studio. It's in there.
I do have one more thing I wanted to say about Renfrow, or more particularly Renfrow's departure, and that's Trey Tucker looked good as a rookie, flashed as a rookie, and so his departure, I think, means that there's a lot of faith in Trey Tucker. Now, we may address the receiver depth in the draft as well, but I liked what I saw from Trey Tucker, and I'm excited about seeing him getting some more opportunities. There's not a guy with his speed on our offense,
right?
So I think it's pretty exciting for him.
Well, somebody who's a friend of the show was talking about drafting a wide receiver who's fast, and I said, we already have one of those at home. Trey Tucker is a deep threat. He's an Al Davis style deep threat. And watching him and Aiden O'Connell work last year was pretty fun. Aiden O'Connell, except for the Jalen Ramsey interception, the balls that Aiden O'Connell dropped in the bucket for Trey Tucker last year were super, super nice. So they gave me so much hope for AOC. So yeah, peace out, Hunter. Hope you do big things in your career. Could you guys imagine the Saints somehow winning the Super Bowl next year with Foster Moreau, Derek Carr, and Hunter Renfro?
No,
Anyway,
I actually can't imagine that.
no, neither. So Hunter Renfro is gone. We wish you all the best of luck. The offensive line still needs to be addressed. We talked about re-signing Andre James, and the original thought was for Parham to move over to center and with James leaving, but we brought James back in the building. But I don't think the contract is prohibitive to drafting some of the really athletic centers that are out there. And we're moving to a zone scheme, which has been reported. So we want the most athleticism that we can get over on our offensive line. There are a couple of guys in the draft who are very, very athletic, center oriented offensive linemen. Maybe they come in and beat out Andre James.
It's entirely possible. But they gave him the sort of contract that sort of says you're the guy. I'm not sure if it's like you're really, really the guy, but I'm not sure how much competition they want to give him. I think if they're going to draft positions along the offensive line, it will be at right guard and right tackle. There are a few centers I really like in this draft: Taylor Bortolini, Cedric Van Pran, Jackson Powers Johnson, just to name a few. There are so many really good centers in this draft. But I think
there's never centers.
I know that it's extremely rare, and as I've said before on the show, center is the second statistically most important position on your offense if you want it to function properly. So you have to have a good one. But I think if the Raiders, in particular, attack center, it will be in a third day pick, 5th, 6th, or 7th round, and there will be guys there, probably guys about the same level of talent as Andre James, but at least it will be some competition. But the Raiders always like to go with guys' positional versatility. They don't generally draft guys who could just play guard, just play tackle. They usually go with guys who can play both, which unfortunately, in my view, means these guys who aren't very good at either one. So I'm hoping that they'll find some just superior athletes who could do everything and everything well. And there are guys like that in the draft.
Joe, I know you're focused on position player or on skill position players. Is there anybody that you see in the draft that looks good to come in and?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be any sort of offensive line expert. What I will say is this, though. There's probably going to be at least 4, if not 5 quarterbacks, possibly even 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. There's probably going to be 6 to 8 wide receivers taken in the first round. And then you got your edge guys and, defensive backs and what have you. And so I guess what I'm getting at from a macro perspective here is that there's probably going to be some good offensive alignment available at 44 when we pick in the second round. And I think that might be the direction we end up going if we do fire on a quarterback in the first round. So because of the skill position guys that are going in round 1, I think that's going to create some value opportunities later in the draft. And the number 44 pick is sort of what I'm eyeing.
Okay. Now, let me run down a list of some of the options that are out there in free agency. We got David Bakhtiari, Laken Tomlinson, Charles Leno, Tyron Smith, Andrus Peat, Cody Whitehair, Dwayne Brown, Kevin Zeitler, Connor Williams, Trenton Brown, Mark Glowinski, Brian Allen, Bradley Bozeman. It's a long list. Dalton Risner's out there. And Pat Elflein. I don't know if he's still hurt. And then there's always the possibility of bringing Greg Van Roten back. But any of those names jump out to you? We've already lost out on Hunt goes to Carolina. Onwenu goes back to New England. Cushenberry signed with Tennessee. It's sad to see the Broncos lose somebody that good. Tyler Badass goes to Washington. Allegretti to Washington. So, what are you guys thinking out of those names? Who stands
I
out?
I like Dalton Risner a lot. I liked him coming out of college, and he has been very consistent and available. He has not suffered with a lot of health issues. I think, as I said, the best ability is availability, and he passes that particular test. I would love it if the Raiders brought him in. Give him a nice contract, be the right guard for the next 3 or 4 years. Would love that.
Yeah, I'm interested of the names you mentioned there. The one that I had also circled was Zeitler from Baltimore.
Mhm.
Baltimore had a lot of cap issues, and so they are losing a lot of studs on that team. And I think that he's one of them to address that guard position. I know Tyler just mentioned that, if somebody's kind of like a swing guy that plays guard and tackle, he's probably not that great at either. But, Andres Pete was doing that for New Orleans, and I think he'd be a good fit, if nothing else, just for depth and that versatility. And Tyron Smith is
He's a
always going to.
Stanford guy, right? Isn't Pete a Stanford guy?
I don't remember, but that'd be nice.
I'm I'm
Wait, I
I'm
was going
dating,
to say
I'm dating
homecoming, but
myself. I'm dating myself here. Andrew Speed was drafted an awfully long time ago for me to be remembering where he went to
Yeah,
college.
like 10 years ago.
Oh
yeah.
man.
And then Tyron Smith, of course, is appealing. He has not been able to stay on the field the last few years, but when he does play, he's a force to be reckoned with. So that's always going to be intriguing.
Anybody I didn't mention?
I think you hit everybody. My list is a lot shorter than yours.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm looking at Spot Track. So, four more names to throw out. Brandon Parker, Gabe Jackson, Trent Brown, and John Feliciano.
Are you trying to give me PTSD?
Well, we call it RTSD. That's what I forgot to talk about on when we did the show the other day. RTSD. We have Raiders traumatic stress disorder.
I have so much of that.
Yeah.
That's a
Can't
real
sleep
thing.
at night.
Yeah. The context I don't remember, but we were talking about something where it was like a unique thing to being a Raiders fan, and it creates this anticipation, like, because we have this trauma that we have to deal with. All right, so no more joking. Jokes aside, okay. So how about the cornerback position? We'll talk about quarterbacks in a second. Xavier Howard's still out there. Adoree Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, Micah Hyde, Avonte Maddox, Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, Rock Ya-Sin, Shaquille Griffin, Kwan Williams, Trey Herndon. There's a ton.
A lot
Who
of
do we
those
want?
guys are a little longer in the tooth. I love Stephon Gilmore, but he's on the downside of his career. The good
He's pretty
part is
washed.
that the Raiders do have enough young cornerbacks at this point where I don't think if you brought in one of those guys, they would necessarily have to start. And I think if you brought in somebody like Stephon Gilmore, I think he could have a mentorship role and be what Marcus Peters should have been last season. Cornerback, I think, is a position the Raiders will address in the draft and absolutely should address in the draft. There's a lot of really decent corners that are going to be in this upcoming draft. A lot of guys, if they wanted to go with that pick number 44, if there's somebody there like, say, Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think you jump on that. But any one of the guys you mentioned, we find. I think Xavier Howard, from what I've read, he's a bit of a diva. I'm not sure if he would necessarily fit into the locker room culture he got going on. But man, if they brought in Stephon Gilmore, I would be absolutely tickled.
Yeah, completely agree. Gilmore is a guy that I, marked down as someone I would be interested in. I'm bummed we lost Amik Robertson.
Yeah, that was
And
Me
terrible.
too.
so,
Me too.
yeah,
Love him.
and so that one hurt quite a bit after the progress we'd seen from him, especially last year. So Gilmore, to Tyler's point, feels like a guy that could step in, show these younger guys the ropes a little bit of what it means to play that position. And I think he's still playing at a high level, but I mean, we're hitting on Yeah, well, I think I'd be happy with him. What I don't want, just talking about RTSD, is to draft another corner or defensive back for that matter in the first round, because when is the last time we got one of those picks right? I think
Namdi Asamoah.
that's exactly right. You got to go back to Namdi. I have that in my notes. And every other one that has not worked out has flamed
Go
out
Bears.
before their rookie contracts were up. How many did we cut before their rookie contracts were up? So yeah, I can't do it again.
The Raiders cornerback draft picks is an absolute shit show in the last 10 years.
Abrams, Mr. Salmon himself.
Yeah. I'm going over this list. And I'm seeing 30, 28, 28, 33, 33, 29, 33. And I come to a name, and he's 25 years old, and he's a former first round pick. He was drafted 9th overall out of the University of Florida. CJ Henderson is a free agent.
Let's see now.
How about a career reclamation project in the style of the old Raiders? This guy has been he didn't hit as, I mean, he's a perfect like former Raider to like be drafted way too high. But maybe there's something in the tank there. What do you guys think about CJ Henderson?
Well, I am a big Florida Gators fan. I lived in Jacksonville for 4 years. That's when I really started to get into football, and that was the Spurrier years, the Danny Werfel years. So I follow Florida more than probably a lot of other Raider fans do. C.J. Henderson was a guy who was, good but not great, not super elite, not like you would expect from pick number 9. He was definitely overdrafted, but he has a ton of talent. I think the coaching in Carolina was a little bit suspect. The coaching in Jacksonville was a little bit suspect when he was there. I think if you brought him in and really pounded him with some really good coaching like we have here, I think he could turn into something. Is that a risk the Raiders want to take with their current cap space? I'm not sure, but if they did, you have the potential for huge return on your investment.
Yeah, by my count, we got about $25 million in cap space right now. There's, of course, the draft class to take care of, and the flexibility after the draft for whatever post June 1 cuts happen. So if we could get them on the cheap, sure, but I kind of think we should just keep our powder dry and see who becomes available come after the draft and come June 1st before training camp.
Well, looking over his stats, oh crap, I lost it. I think he was hurt last year in Carolina, and if anybody was going to do well in Carolina under UC Davis legend Ejiro Evero as their defensive coordinator, Henderson might have, but he only started 7 games due to injury. So I think it would be worth a shot, because the guys that are going to command the big salaries, the Eli Apples of the world. I'm sorry, sometimes I just have to be sardonic. But like Gilmore's going to get some money. Xavier Howard's going to get a bag. Maybe CJ Henderson is a little bit under the radar, and he might be he would be perfect to come over and just like show that he is a dog, and I love it.
If he's open to approve a deal, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay. So the other thing, or one of the things that Joe and I were talking about before the show, was the Raiders need to add depth at edge in from the outside linebacker position, and we know that Patrick Graham employs kind of a hybridization on defense. Jerome Baker's out there, Tyus Bowser, Clavon Chason. That's another perfect reclamation project. Somebody that was good and then drafted high and just washed out. One name that I like a lot is Michael Walker, who kind of played his way out of Atlanta. Anybody you guys are looking at on the edge?
The 2 names I wrote down at edge were I'm going just back to the Baltimore scrap pile, but Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy. And I think Clowney at this stage in his career um, would be really effective as a part-time player and just a depth piece. I think we're all optimistic about Tyree Wilson. I think he's good. It's hard to judge. He was coming off of an injury in that rookie year. He showed some promise, not as much production as we would have liked. But so having a guy that can contribute part time, give these guys a breather, and still be a game wrecker in his own right excites me. Kyle Van Noy also got a nice long resume. So I don't know. Those were the two that sort of stood out to me at edge, and I agree. We want to add another body there at least.
When Van Noy hit Baltimore towards the end of last season, he absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
That was fun to watch. The I think the thing with Tyree is that when the McDaniels was still there, they were running him off the edge on the right hand side, opposite of Crosby. And when he got moved over to 3-tech and he's like right next to Crosby, that's when he started to really play well. Any edge rushers that you're looking at, Raider Damas?
I haven't honestly paid a ton of attention to the edge position this particular offseason cycle. But you did mention Caleb Von Chason, and I liked him in college a lot. He went to LSU, and I believe he ended up with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And there were a lot of really good defensive players on the Jaguars, and I think he got lost in the shuffle a little bit. They had a bunch of really good edge rushers. They got Trayvon Walker, they got Josh Allen, they have a number of other guys who can really get after the quarterback. I'm not sure what his particular issue is, whether it was, just not enough mouths to feed, or whether it was an effort thing. I think if you brought him in, I think he might be able to do something. I think he would be at least on the Arden Key level.
Right.
So I wouldn't mind giving him, a very small 1-year contract and see what he's got.
And that's kind of what I thought of. Arden Key, Cleveland Ferrell to a certain extent. There's a lot of guys out there who they're just solid. They're good role players. They're not going to like blow you away. They're just going to be solid floor guys that can be subbed in and out and help spell the other guys that are doing all the work. Clowney would be good. Solomon Thomas is out there again. He's another guy that kind of fits that mold.
Seems like him and Clowney have just been mercenaries the last few years, right? They just doing these short deals and just going wherever they want to make the most money and also compete. But yeah, I'd be interested there too.
When you're a first round pick who is like puts out good production but not elite production, you can sort of get 5 or 6 years of 1 year, $8 million contracts, and that's $40 billion, and you never have to work again after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the main thing about our defensive line is just obviously Christian Wilkins was where we're spending our money in free agency, but what he's going to do for Crosby, what he's going to do for Tyree Wilson, what he's going to do for Kuntz is, I think, going to have the biggest impact. So, whoever we can put around him, just like less double teams is more sacks, right? So
let's not forget, we drafted Cleveland Ferrell 4th overall, and the main reason we did so is because he was playing on a line right next to Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins. So it made him look really super good. And as we saw on the Raiders, if he's not playing next to teammates of that caliber, he's not super effective. And when we're putting guys who are already elite next to guys who are already elite, we're going to see that exponentially get better.
Yeah, that's right. Great point, by the way.
So with the cap space, Chase Young is out there, and that's not something that's going to be realistic for us to do. But there is another name, Derek Barnett. He's still on the younger side. He's only 27 years old. He's not one of these 30-plus guys. And he played for Houston last year. He's coming off of his rookie contract, his 5-year contract, at $1 million a year. That's basically been what he's been paid. Could Derek Barnett be a possibility?
I never really liked him, even at Tennessee. I never liked him. I thought he was overdrafted by the Eagles. I would definitely pass on him.
Okay. I don't have any strong feelings. I'll defer to Tyler on this one.
You need to have a strong feeling. All right. Let's go over some of the other free agent happenings that have gone down while we've been away. Keenan Allen is now a Chicago Bear. What do we think?
Thank God. I think it's a great compliment for the DJ Moore, Cole Kmet thing that they've got going in that offense. It's going to be a nice soft landing spot for Caleb with a couple guys that can get open at will, presuming that it's going to be Caleb. But what that probably does is takes the Bears out of the running for a wide receiver at number 9. So that's really what becomes the biggest question to me. I thought they were going to take Roma Dunze there. So if they've got Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, I don't think they really need to address the position in the first round. But I'm just glad he's out of LA and we don't have to face him twice a year.
Yeah, I think the Bears draft is going to be Caleb Williams and 9 offensive linemen. I think he's got plenty of weapons now. But I do want to talk about the Chargers for a second. Not the phone Chargers. We'll talk about the football team that's called the Chargers. For the 7 fans of the Chargers that are out there watching me right now.
6 today. You're 6 now.
6. One died of I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, Keenan Allen's mom.
My condolences to Steve, the Charger fans' family.
Keenan Allen's mom was one of them.
Oh, that's a shame. The Chargers remind me of that Will Smith meme at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where he's like sitting in the, standing in the empty room and there's no furniture around him. And Justin Herbert's like, who do I pass to now? And there's nobody there. They got rid of Mike Williams. They got rid of Keenan Allen. You have nothing, sir.
Gerald Everett.
Does he count? Like, really?
I mean, he literally had 2 hands. And
his name was Gerald.
So was Buster Posey's.
Well, Giants legend Buster Posey. Let's not besmirch his name. Future first ballot Hall of Famer. I think the big thing in mock drafts has been Brock Bowers to the Chargers. I've seen a lot of that. But now I think if they don't draft Malik Neighbors, something has gone terribly wrong.
Right.
This is a good draft to replenish your wide receiver room, which is why I don't mind this move for the Chargers, getting rid of your old and overpriced wide receivers and just go draft 3 new ones. You'll be just fine. I hate to see who they are because I don't want to root against some of these guys, but I also don't want Justin Herbert to have nice things ever again.
We're getting to the point where wide receiver is the new running back. You don't need to have 10-year superstars. Just like go grab a bunch out of the draft.
When there's 60 good receivers in your league, they're not going to, one is not going to be that much of an improvement over the other unless you have someone, super special like Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams or somebody like that. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be that guy. In, the next, 5 years from now, he's going to sign a massive contract with somebody. Maybe the Cardinals, maybe not. But yeah, this is the year if you want to get rid of all your receivers and draft new ones, go do it and have fun.
Yeah, the Neighbors thing terrifies me, and I came to the same conclusion as soon as I saw that news. I was like, oh, it's not Bowers, it's Neighbors, and that sucks. Him and Herbert is going to be a problem, but fortunately, I think, Harbaugh is going to want to run the ball like it's 1989, so maybe they won't utilize him to his fullest.
Right, because, and you kind of, okay, they have these draft picks that they need to make. They need to get a high level tight end. They need to get a high level wide receiver because right now their wide receiver room is Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer.
They need to. How dare you?
And Keelan Doss, Raider legend Keelan Doss. I don't know if he's still under contract.
He was a UC Davis guy too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the many players that has eaten my pizza, including Brock Bowers and Colby Waldman and Wadman, the punter. Okay, so Herbert's looking around. He's like, I have Jalen Guyton and QJ and the other guy that I said. So they're going to need to get somebody in the building, but they also. Austin Eckler just left, and they don't have a running back, and they just let Everett go, and they don't have a tight end. I was absolutely sure when Khalil Mack signed in LA that they weren't going to be able to keep both of Bosa and Mac. Somehow Bosa capitulated and said, I'll take less money. Let's run it back. But why would you do that if you have 0 players on offense? Because everybody thinks that Jim Harbaugh is going to go and get Blake Corum. Maybe he wants Brock Bowers. Like, they don't have that many draft picks in the first 10 picks. So there's only one option, and that's Malik Neighbors, right? I mean, right? What are they doing?
Well,
Yeah.
the Chargers' offense right now is terrible, and they make up for it by having an awful defense as well. They don't have enough draft picks to address everything, and they also, since they restructured the contracts of both Bosa and Mac, don't have the cap space or cap flexibility to go out and address everything either. So I think next year is going to be – we're going to see them win about 5 games and lose a bunch of games like 6-3 because they're just going to be awful on both sides of the ball. But they're going to be good enough on defense where they're not going to be a complete embarrassment like they have been in the past. So I just think it's going to be real hard times for them for a while. I think Jim Harbaugh is a good enough coach where he can bring them back, but financial realities are what they are. He's not going to coach them out of that.
Right.
Yeah. What's wild about the Chargers, though, is this time last year we were looking at their roster and we were saying, man, they are completely loaded. They still have a lot of those same guys, and it was just a coaching blunder. So I actually think that Harbaugh is looking at that roster and saying, let's keep the defense together and find our discount on offense. We've got a great quarterback. Let's refresh at wide receiver, to Biggs' point, and grab my guy Corum in the second round. And all of a sudden, honestly, they're looking halfway decent on offense too. I'm not writing them off quite that quickly. But I think with Harbaugh, they're probably going to be a 500 squad year one and then pretty dangerous next year.
Every year we look at the Chargers on paper and they're world beaters on paper. And every year at week 9, half their team is on IR. And there were people who are saying, well, what happened to the Chargers? They chargered like they do every single year. This is what they do. I have pounded the table on Twitter year after year. The Chargers are going to suck. They always suck. It doesn't matter how good they look. It never matters how good they look. When they look terrible, they do fine. When they look amazing, they absolutely crater. So the better they look, maybe I should be concerned because if they look terrible, they're going to be awesome.
I can't argue with any of that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the Raiders were like that for a long time. Every time we were kind of like discounted and underdogs, we totally outplayed expectations. And every time everybody, they're starting to put it together, then something happened. And now we all have RTSD. All right. Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown to the Chiefs. Is he the wide receiver one that Patrick Mahomes has been waiting for?
No, I think he's the field stretcher that is the improvement on MVS. I think it makes their offense a lot more dangerous because I think Rashee Rice is that guy. And I don't like it one bit. I was hoping they'd cheap out and blow their pick on the second round again. But even when they do that, they win the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I'm just throwing my hands up. He's going to be awesome. I don't know if the stats are going to be that great, but I think what he's going to do for the offense is going to be great if he can stay healthy. And it's not great.
Yeah, Joe stole my thunder just a little bit because when you asked the question, is Hollywood Brown going to be that guy? I was like, no, because Rashee Rice already is. Anybody who watched him play down the stretch and in the playoffs knows he's that dude. Hollywood Brown has already played with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray and has not ascended to the upper echelon of dudes in this league, has not really capitalized upon the blazing speed that he has because he's too inconsistent in his play. I'm not sure if he's going to be any more consistent with Patrick Mahomes. I think he'll get more opportunities. I think he'll have, better ball placement. I'm not sure if his production will go up. Well, what I do know is he'll probably be a 4th round fantasy pick. And so I'd be happy to take him there. I'd be happy to take Rashee Rice in the 3rd. I think this is much better for fantasy than it is for real life.
Yeah, last season when Rashi started seeing an uptick in playing time, in all my dynasty leagues, I started just making offers for him because I was looking at that receiver room and thinking, who else is there? If they're going to give this guy more opportunities, he's going to blow up. I was successfully able to trade for him on the cheap before the ascent in like
Mhm.
4 leagues, and all those teams are so well positioned right now. So yeah, I think Marquise Brown is going to take the top off. I think he's going to have a few blow up games, but I think that offense now probably runs through Rashi and will continue to run through Kelsey for until the wheels fall off.
Now, apart from losing Nick Allegretti and Tommy Townsend, and bringing in Irv Smith, the Chiefs really haven't done much in the way of free agency, except for this Marquise Brown move. And so the Raiders really in the division have had the splash. And then if we can just like take a look real quick at the Denver Broncos.
I think real quick, I think didn't the Chiefs extend Snead and Jones?
Jones, they brought Jones back.
I think they're
I don't.
just keeping their big difference makers. Sorry, we
I
gonna say
thought
Tyler?
I thought
I don't
Snead
think they've
was still out
extended.
there.
Did they extend Snead? I didn't see that today. I thought he's still going to be tagged or possibly traded.
I'll have to double check, but I thought that they extended Snead, so that's where they're spending their money.
Yeah.
As well, they should. Snead is exactly the kind of guy they should keep if they want to stay on top.
So who do you think is the best candidate to run the Broncos bullshit into the ground next year? Jimmy Garoppolo. They already lost out on Sam Howell, or any other, or is Stidham the guy?
I think it's whoever they drafted 12. Because it could be JJ McCarthy at that point. It could be Bo Nix at that point. It could be Penix at that point. They're going to draft somebody there. I don't think even the Broncos, who are functionally illiterate, are not stupid enough to go into next year without a rookie quarterback. So they have to take somebody at 12. There's no question about that.
They're tanking. They're absolutely tanking.
For who? There's nobody good enough next year to warrant the number one pick at quarterback unless you like, Quinn Ewers a whole lot. Like, what are you tanking for?
Shedeur Sanders.
Well, I guess I just don't like him that much either, but that's just me. I mean,
we're not the Broncos.
I think I understand that. I know he's a Colorado kid. I guess if you want to do that, that's fine. But Colorado hasn't had much success with him either. So
no, I'm just blowing smoke. Joe, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say it looks like I was incorrect, and they have not extended Snead, just Chris Jones. So my apologies on that one. In terms of the Broncos, to me, Bo Nix sure seems like a Sean Payton type of quarterback.
I would shoot myself in the head if that happened.
I don't think JJ is going to still be there, but I think Bo Nix feels like the right fit. So we'll see on that one. There's still a player, I suppose, for Fields, although everybody is saying they don't want Fields. So I don't know. I tend to think it's Nix, and then Penix falls to the Raiders, and I can live with all of that.
Well, we'll get into more of that. I gotta pay a bill real quick, and on the other side, it's quarterback time. What up, nation? The 2023 NFL season is over, but fantasy football season never stops. You can already draft for the 2024 season on Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy football. The Big Board is a pre-NFL draft fantasy football contest with all the incoming rookies in the players pool, even the ones the Raiders haven't drafted yet. Draft your team in 20 rounds, and that's it. You leave it alone, set it and forget it. In best ball format, you get the optimal score to fill your starting lineup. A great way to get your dynasty startup draft fix without any league management at all. It's only $10 to enter, and over $2 million in prizes are up for grabs. How much of that do you want? Be sure to sign up for Underdog with promo code UNDROPPABLE. That's UNDROPPABLE, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. You put in $100, that's 10 leagues. We will give you 100 more. Sign up today. All right.
You're good at those ad reads.
Oh, thank you so much. So there was a little bit of craziness the other day, and I had just started seeing the beat writers tweeting that the Raiders were in talks to bring over Justin Fields in a trade. So I start going in to research Justin Fields' metrics versus Aiden O'Connell so that I could jump into comment sections and say, hey, stop it. And not 2 minutes later, Gardner Minshew signs with the Raiders. So now I have to expand my search to comparisons of Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And Aiden O'Connell is a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. Hate to tell people that. Justin Fields is still out there. It's not off the table that he comes over, but it's looking like everybody realizes that outside of the fantasy space, Justin Fields is not a starting quarterback. He's a maybe in 6 years like Baker Mayfield quarterback. What is going to happen at the starting quarterback position in Las Vegas, Dynasty Joe, because Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are not the QB1?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Aiden O'Connell is better than Gardner Minshew, and we at least need to give him a shot to prove that. They, to me, appear to have the same fatal flaw, right? When Aiden O'Connell has an opportunity to throw and throw on platform with a clean pocket, he's deadly. But when he's pressured, and this is true of a lot of quarterbacks, but when he's pressured, his completion percentage drops to low 50s. Well, guess what Gardner Minshew's problem is? The same thing. Now, Gardner Minshew's got slightly better wheels. I think he ran like a 4.9, if I remember correctly. So he's got a little bit better escapability. But when, he's pressured, his completion percentage goes from the mid 60s to the low 50s as well. So unfortunately, I think regardless, we're going to end up with kind of the same result. But if we have to choose, I'd rather see whether or not Aiden O'Connell improves. And I want to give him the opportunity to do so. But ultimately, I think the solution's probably for this year in the draft or in a trade for Fields. I'm kind of agnostic because quarterback is so hard to evaluate. I'm not going to pretend to be some QB guru and know the answer to that question. I think what we've seen from Fields is he's probably not the guy yet, though.
Right. So there was a nice little chart that popped up today on Twitter. Charted NFL quarterback passing while kept clean from 2021 to 2023 from Fantasy Points data, and Football Insights over on Twitter is what put this out there. So looking at a turnover-worthy throw percentage of under 2, we have Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, CJ Stroud. Aiden O'Connell is not quite to 3%. Justin Fields is 3.2, and Gardner Minshew is about 3.3. So Aiden O'Connell doesn't make mistakes the way those other guys do. Catchable throw percentage. O'Connell was just at the 80% point. Minshew was slightly below that, and Justin Fields down at 78%. So we are talking a couple of percentage points, but Aiden O'Connell is the better quarterback of the three. Smaller sample size, granted, but he's the better quarterback of the three. Are we still in on Jaden Daniels? We're not getting Drake May. Washington's not moving off that number 2 pick. They just traded Sam Howell. They're taking Drake May. Caleb's going to Chicago almost inevitably. The New England Patriots sitting at the 3 pick, would they be willing to do a rebuild starting with Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi, and trade us the number 3 so that we could move up to get Jaden? Do we have to drop back a little bit and focus our energy on JJ McCarthy? Do we take somebody else with the 13 and drop back and hope for Nix or Penix a little bit later? What do you see as the likely scenarios in the draft? Because we need a starting quarterback, unless we're going to go with Aiden O'Connell, and that doesn't seem to be the plan.
Well, as far as Aiden O'Connell goes, I think the Raiders have afforded him something that they never ever afforded Derek Carr, and that's legitimate competition in training camp and preseason. Derek Carr was always the guy in Oakland and for one season in Las Vegas, and they never really brought in anybody good to challenge him.
What about Matt Flynn?
What? Come on now. Matt Flynn, was that not even the same year that
was his rookie year? That was Carr's rookie year. He beat out Flynn.
On. No, but when Derek Carr was the unquestioned starter, he never had anybody to push him in training camp. It was always a rookie or some has-been retread or nothing. Derek Carr stagnated. He never got any better. And after 2016, when he broke his leg, he got substantially worse. The Raiders right now have somebody where they can say, okay, Aiden, go beat this guy. Or, hey, Gardner, go beat that guy. And that makes you better. And the Raiders have not had that in, I can't even tell you how long it's been since they had, since 2009? I don't even know. Terrell Pryor and Matt McGloin going against each other? I don't even know. It's been a long, long time. I don't think the Raiders are going to want to pay the price to go up to the Patriots spot at 3. I think that is going to be – I think the Patriots are taking Jaden Daniels at 3, and I don't think they're going to want to trade out of it. I think the Raiders' best course of action, considering the Oregon Pro Day was on Tuesday and we saw Bo Nix have a fantastic showing, would be to trade up with the Minnesota Vikings and take Bo Nix there. I don't think he'll go before that, but I strongly suspect that the Broncos would want him if he falls to them. And the Raiders absolutely have to do everything in their power to make sure that does not happen.
I did see another chart today on Twitter, and it was a correlation between fantasy points scored in college and how that relates to NFL success. And Jaden Daniels last year, he had the number 2 college fantasy points per game out of Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, all of these guys that are considered like the top tier NFL quarterbacks. Drake May wasn't on that list. Caleb Williams wasn't on that list. Nobody else was on that list. Just Jaden Daniels. I think it would behoove the Raiders. And I have waffled back and forth on Jaden Daniels so much. He's so good. Yeah, but he's so old. But he is so good, but he's so small. But he's so good, but he's had injury. Like, I waffle. And one week, I'm totally in on Jaden Daniels. And the next week, I'm totally out on Jaden Daniels. And this is one of my in weeks on Jaden Daniels. I say we do whatever it takes to jump up and get him at number 3.
All right. I'm going to disagree with both of you.
Sweet.
I am firmly in the JJ McCarthy camp. If we're putting together a wish list and trading up for a quarterback, I don't think Caleb's in play. I don't think May's in play. And frankly, I think I like JJ better than I like May, right? Jaden Daniels transferred. He's 185 pounds. He takes gigantic hits the way he plays. I've seen him take hits where I didn't think he was going to get up. And in the NFL, I think a lot of those are going to be concussions. So I don't know. I have just tons of concerns with Daniels. With Nix, another guy who had to transfer. Granted, he looked great in Oregon, and I think he's a great timing quarterback. I have questions about his arm strength. And then I see JJ McCarthy, and he just came in. He played games as a true freshman. He's an early declare. And when I talked about earlier how the problem with both Minshew and with O'Connell is that they struggle in the face of pressure. When you take a look at J.J. McCarthy's stats on third down under pressure, he is way ahead of the pack in terms of pressure throws on third downs. That's what I want to see, because I think that, like I said, I'm no QB analyst, but I do know that if you want to win the NFL, you got to be able to complete those passes. Now, granted, they were running the ball most of the time in the second half. They were out to big leads, but every time they needed a drive, every time they needed a score, he got it done. So I don't know. I'm in the JJ camp if we're putting together a wish list, and would love to have McCarthy.
And this is just a quick reminder because I know that you've watched every Unrivaled show up until now, so you've heard me say before that JJ McCarthy is somebody that I'm way higher on than consensus. I'm way higher on him than everybody else. He last time I spoke, he was my guy. He's my target. The age is perfect. The 61 mile an hour velocity on his throws. I studied tape on him. He makes the throws he needs to. He can get it to anywhere on the field that he needs to. He just didn't have a whole lot of volume. Again, the age, that early breakout and early draft eligibility or early coming out early, and that age is so correlated with NFL success.
And also, he was winning the whole time, right? Winners,
Right.
average, winning. He was doing that for 3 years.
He's lost 3 games since he was a freshman in high school. Of course, Trevor Lawrence was kind of that guy too. He didn't lose for a long time, or had lost like a handful of games. So I'm right there with you on JJ. If like I had a 1A and 1B, if we come out of the draft with Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy, either one of those, I'm going to be happy. The other guys, not quite as happy, right?
I'll be excited about any of these guys. Who are we kidding? I will buy into any quarterback that we take just out of sheer hope. But I'm with you.
Spencer Rattler, come on.
I would be happy with Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy. I have not been very high on McCarthy in the past, but I have listened to Hondo Carpenter talk about him pretty recently. At the Combine, he was wowing scouts with his cerebral ability to, break down defenses and read coverages and all that. I think he's going to be more of a Peyton Manning type, where he wins before the snap with his brain rather than his arm. And his arm is fine. It's just that I don't think he faced the best competition in the Big Ten. Although when he faced good competition, he destroyed them. I just have never been a big fan of JJ McCarthy. I just thought he was kind of there. Michigan was a team designed to win no matter who their quarterback was. I'm not sure they ever really won a game because of JJ McCarthy. When they were playing Penn State last year, they were milking the clock in the middle of the second quarter. I mean, a nutless monkey could have done what JJ McCarthy did in some of those games. But in some of those games, he came out and played really well. So he is one of the guys I would be okay with if the Raiders got him. But there are guys I would be a lot more excited if they got, like Nix or Penix. Personally, I think would be really, really good for the Raiders to get.
I'm just thinking back to the national championship, that one throw that he made where he zipped it behind that defender's head, right? The moment that he turned around for that touchdown catch. I don't know how many quarterbacks can make that throw, let alone can make that throw.
Right.
I don't know. I'm in love with the guy.
And he's only 21. The other thing, if anybody wants to watch a really good breakdown of JJ McCarthy's time at the Combine, Brett Coleman on Bootleg Football had a video where they were breaking down Combine performances, and I can't remember the name of the guest that he had, or the co-host that he had. Good analyst. I follow him. But I can't remember his stupid name. Not his name is stupid. I'm stupid. What he was talking about with McCarthy was that when they were doing the drills for the wide receivers, a lot of people were talking about, oh, he didn't look very accurate or whatever. But the people that were on the field at the Combine, listening to the coaches talk to JJ McCarthy, listening to JJ McCarthy talk to the wide receivers, and we have to keep in mind that these are wide receivers that McCarthy's never played with before, doesn't know their tendencies, doesn't know if they're going to flatten out routes, things like that. They said JJ McCarthy was putting the ball exactly where he needed to every single time, and most of the drops and the misses were because of the wide receivers that he was throwing to, not because of the throws that JJ McCarthy was making. So, again, steam up JJ McCarthy. I like him a lot. I would be very, very happy with him in silver and black. And I've talked on the show lots about how I'm a clipboard guy. Give him a clipboard for however long, and I think that as bridge quarterbacks, O'Connell and Minshew would be perfect for a JJ McCarthy situation. So I like that a lot. What's your perfect start to the draft, Joe?
Well, now you got me wanting to trade up for JJ McCarthy. But assuming we don't trade up and don't mortgage the future and we just stay put, I think I'd like to see us take Panics in round one, and then probably take a right tackle or a guard in round two. I'm an offensive guy. We got a defensive minded coach. He can get the most out of these guys. Let's go spend the free agent money on defense, and let's just draft on offense, build from the inside out, get a couple of linemen. Maybe I definitely want to see a running back to complement Zamir, and maybe one more wide receiver for depth. So, I'm all about the offense.
All right.
My perfect start would be the aforementioned trade with the Vikings and taking Bo Nix. There is a lot of concern about his arm strength, but I did watch some of his pro day on Tuesday, and he was throwing 60, 65 yards in the air with relative ease. I think his arm strength is a lot less of a concern than a lot of people make it out to be. The Oregon offense was a lot of dink and dunk, a lot of slams over the middle. But Bo Nix did have to air it out on occasion. When he did, he was fairly accurate with it, and he didn't seem to have any trouble pushing the ball forward in the air. I think it all looked pretty natural to him. It's just that he wasn't asked to do that a ton. It wasn't a pro-style offense by any means. And he showed enough mobility. He can get out of the pocket. He can run the read option if you need him to. He can get 15 and 20 yards on a run. He can run really, really well. Just like Justin Herbert showed, he just was never asked to do that. Justin Herbert is extremely fast and a very good runner, but he hasn't been able to show that very much. I think if they took Nix in the first round, got somebody like Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second to shore up the cornerback room, and then somebody like Jaden Wright, the running back from Tennessee, in the third, I think that would be absolutely ideal.
Love that.
What about somebody who has a little bit more receiving game, like Isaac Garendo?
I would be happy with that. I would be happy with that too. I just think Jalen Wright at that point in the third round will probably be the best all-around back that you're going to get.
Yeah,
So,
Grenda's already 24 years old too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But Grenda's
No, it's
already
fine. Go
24
ahead.
years. He's already 24 years old, so I think he's going to fall despite his really impressive combine. I don't think he's going before the fourth or fifth round. He, was never really a star. His production profile is not there, but he is super athletic, so teams are going to like that.
Right. And that's more what I'm talking about. He's not a fantasy guy, but he's super athletic. He does catch the ball. And another older guy, Dylan Lobby, both of those guys are probably fourth or fifth rounders. They're not going to be in our rookie drafts until, later on. But coming in and being a combo piece in the Raiders backfield, I think I like both of those guys without having to spend the draft capital to get some of the
Yeah, I think Isaiah
some of the other
Davis,
guys out there.
if we're talking about running backs that are going to be available in the fourth, fifth round, I think Isaiah Davis is one of those names as well. I think I'm curious to see where, Jax has been talking so much about Kamani Vidal, and then he went and crushed the combine too. So I'm curious where Kamani's going to land, but I'd be super into Kamani as well. And I had dreams of Will Shipley, but after his impressive pro day, I don't think he's going to be falling to us.
No.
Yeah. In terms of wide receivers that might be there in the third or fourth round, I really like Brendan Rice.
Son of Raider legend.
I almost wore my Jerry jersey tonight. And I love calling him Raider legend.
Yeah.
I think like Xavier Legette is really interesting. I think Jacob Cowing's really interesting. Just guys that are, assuming we're not going to take somebody in the first two rounds. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to go in the first two rounds. If Javon Baker's there in the third, I want him. If Ricky Pearsall somehow is there in the third, I want him. Roman Wilson, I think he's going to go mid-second. I think Pearsall will too. And I don't know, a lot of the top tier fantasy guys are probably going to be first 2 round picks, but Baker might fall, and I think he's got some alpha traits. So if he's there, I'm super interested.
All right.
Ricky Pearsall is an interesting one. I was telling you, Biggs, last time we were talking about. I was looking at some film of Robbie Ashford, quarterback who was recruited by Oregon. And I was just looking and watching this high school film, and this wide receiver, he absolutely stood out. And I forget exactly. Hold on a second. Who was that? I forgot his name. It was George Pickens. George Pickens was his high school receiver at Hoover High in Alabama, and he jumped off the screen at me. And when you watch highlights of Anthony Richardson from last year when he was drafted, when he was playing for Florida before he was drafted by the Colts, Ricky Pearsall jumps off the screen. He was the only guy on that entire Gators team making plays in the receiving game. He's the only guy with hands who could catch the ball. He was the only guy, who, once he caught the ball, could run with it. He was the entire offense. It was him. It was Anthony Richardson throwing to Ricky Pearsall. That was all they could do. That was the only way they would have success. And Ricky Pearsall, if he's like Hunter Renfrow, if he's the guy, he can absolutely be the guy. And if he's not the guy, he can be a complementary piece. I love Ricky Pearsall. I think he'll be an absolute asset to any team that takes him. He's an absolute dog. Love that guy.
Let's go. Let's get him in the building.
He's also a little bigger than Hunter too. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's an incredible route runner. He made the best catch I've ever seen. So I don't know. I'm stoked on him. I don't think he's going to fall to us.
He's bigger than 5'10", 183?
I think he might be in play for us in the second round, but I think we have more pressing needs.
Yeah, all right. There's a lot of good running backs in this draft. Ray Davis out of Kentucky, I think, is an option. There's just so many guys. I mean, this is why the running back position is so fungible. Because every year you have about 25 dudes who can come in and get you 900 yards. There's just so much talent, and it sadly drives everybody's price down. But that's unfortunately how economics works.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of RB1s. There's no Bijan, there's no Breece Hall, but there are a lot of RB2s, and there's a lot of depth.
I got one more sleeper at running back, and that's Tyrone Tracy. He was a wide receiver that converted to running back, so he's an older prospect as well. But in terms of compliments for Zamir White, I think Tracy's an interesting one because, one, he's really explosive, but also we know he can catch the ball out of the backfield, which is something we've seen a little bit from Zamir, but I wouldn't say it's a strong suit. So having a back that can do that, I know we just re-signed Amir Abdullah. I don't think anybody's super excited about that, but he's going to do his job. Tyrone Tracy would get me excited.
All right. What about Bucky?
I mean, I personally am a big Bucky Irving fan. I've watched him do some really amazing things. His athletic testing was not the greatest. His straight line speed is not the best. Wasn't even the best on his own Oregon team. But that kid is very hard to bring down. He's very tough. He's very, very shifty. He's excellent in the receiving game. He can catch whatever you throw at him. A lot of the Ducks' offense was lateral passing to the backs out of the backfield. It worked to absolute perfection when Bucky Irving was on his game, which was most of the time. So I'm a huge fan of him. I think you can get him late because his testing was so poor. I think if you wanted to take a flyer on him in the 6th round, I think he can be a home run.
If we're talking that late, for sure. I wrote an article over at the Undroppables before the combine, basically about profiles to fade, and I created a set of rules. And I basically said if a quarterback's under 200 pounds, they need to have a speed score in excess of 100. If they're over 200 pounds, they need to have a speed score in excess of 90. Well, Bucky is 192 and his speed score was 89. He didn't even meet the speed threshold for 200 plus pound backs, let alone for guys who are under 200 pounds. So it's just a glaring red flag. The only successful comp is Kyron Williams, the outlier of all outliers and maybe the most divisive name in, running backs. So if we're talking about, 5th, 6th, 7th round, yeah, I'm interested in Bucky Irving. Can he be our James White or Theo Riddick? Great. But I don't want to spend any meaningful capital on him. He was awesome at Oregon. That one honestly shocked me. It kind of broke my heart. But after seeing those numbers, and then he didn't run at his pro day.
Yeah,
that broke my heart. I mean, you got to have a little more dog in you than that.
Nobody lost as much value from the combine as Bucky Irving, which again, if we want to take a flyer on him and make him our Danny Woodhead, that's he's it makes it cheaper for us to do. All right, didn't quite make it to 90 minutes this week, but I do want to thank our special guest at Dynasty Joe FF. Catch him on the Undroppables, and I want to say that going from special guest to host is not a hard transition. You're in the messaging group. So from here on out, Joe, you are welcome every Thursday. Every time I'm going to do an emergency pod, you're gonna get the nod and the link and all that stuff. So
the
love having you on. Yeah, it'll
be with Minshew's face on it.
So once again, tell everybody where to find you.
At Dynasty Joe FF. You can find all my work at the Undroppables. And thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to talking a lot more Raiders with you guys, especially as the draft approaches and afterwards. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot to say.
Sweet. And don't forget the underscore, you guys. Tyler Smith, Raider Damas. Where's your stuff?
Stuff is at the Raider Ramble every Friday or Saturday during the season. I write the Raider Damas Foretelling, which is basically the Comedy Central roast of whoever the Raiders are playing that week. So I make fun of them and make sure to let the comedy flow. So it's a really good time. So Raider Ramble every weekend during the season.
And some of the funniest content I've ever read. I don't know why my handle says @Biggs. It's @BigBoned FFB. Find me on Twitter. I'm going to take that off for next week. It's just Biggs. And I'm going to leave everybody with this. So I talked about the chart of NFL quarterback passing while kept clean. And because it's a double grid, there's the top right quadrant that is really what we're looking for. Number one name on there is Patrick Mahomes. He's super, super high up there. Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins. These are all guys that are in the 84% plus of catchable throw percentage and under 3% on the turnover-worthy throw percentage. And there's a really interesting name that's there. And he has higher catchable throw percentage than Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, and that man's name is Derek Carr. So I just thought I'd leave Raider Nation with that little tidbit, and thank you guys for watching.
Away.
and fuck the Broncos.
Fuck the Broncos.
Peace.
Oh wait, no, don't end it yet. I still have the. Dang it, I always forget this because I'm in the comments and I don't do this.